All right. Well, we're at 12:01, so I'd say let's push the go button. Does that work?
Let's do it. That sounds
Okay.
great. Go ahead,
Great.
Jess.
All right. Well, hello. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jess Ray, and I am Magnet Culture's workforce strategist. I have the pleasure of meeting with our clients and other partners on a regular basis to figure out what kind of challenges they're faced with and if there's anything we can do to help support them. And today's webinar is all about generations. So I will admit, I am a millennial. And maybe in the chat, I'd be so curious to know if you can put your generation in the chat so we just kind of gauge who's here and also to kind of see that we have probably a wide range of folks here on the call. Today, I'm talking with the one and the only Alayna Thomas, our resident Gen Z retention strategist. Remember that all of our webinars are recorded and they're available on our website at magnetculture.com. This year's past webinars, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be informed when those webinars are going to be available. Today's playback will be available in just a few days on that same page if you'd like to share the insights with your leadership team after the session. And many times we will have clients actually use our webinars as a free training. So, hint, hint. So, feel free to grab that and show this as a watch party, watch it during lunch, have some great conversation around today's topic. As questions come to mind, make sure you put those in the Q&A box. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. I'll be engaging with you in the chat and we'll answer those questions throughout or at the end, depending on where we're flowing at. So make sure you stay for the entire session. We have a really exciting, hot off the press mini book to share with you at the end of the call. And Alayna, I will pass it off to you.
Hey, thanks, Jess. Okay, if you all heard about this webinar, then you heard maybe the one statistic that got you here, which is that Gen Z outnumbers baby boomers in the workforce. But a lot of the culture that we have in workplaces is still really reflecting norms established by older generations. And I also say we are going to say younger and older, and I like to put them in quotes because we teach that these things are subjective, right? So older than me, if I consider everyone older than me as older, some people might say, well, that's not true. I'm not old. That's not what I'm saying. So just know that that can be a touchy word in the workplace, and I've learned that. Gen Z employees bring a lot of different lived experiences, and maybe is it some societal shifts, right? Or changes in parenting that has shaped them the way that they are, and they're bringing that and their whole selves right to the workplace. And what I find is for myself, when I first started my career, and for a lot of those that I work with, those that I teach a lot of Gen Z students, we don't realize, I didn't realize that the way I was coming across and the way that I was showing up was disruptive and maybe even perceived as disrespectful, that I was rocking the boat a bit too much. So that's why we're talking about this today, because of course we have to make some jabs at the negative perceptions, but I also really hope that you always hear me speak to some of the realities and the positive side that we're trying to bring. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is different. And I think disruptive is a good word to use. We know that disruptive can be positive if we use it in the right way. The workplace now, from a statistical perspective, is about 67% millennial and Gen Z. So that's why Jess and I are talking today. We know that to attract and retain employees of all ages, you might be hiring a Gen Xer or a boomer, right? As well as millennial and Gen Z. We have to realize that the strategies that did work for generations are no longer the most effective to keep the talent that we need. And we can't use that one size fits all management approach. If you followed us for a bit, you might be sick of us saying that, but I'm going to keep saying it until it becomes a norm in the workplace. So, y'all, you deserve to have a thriving working environment, and we hope this conversation helps with that.
Yes, absolutely. The thriving, and I love that you deserve because it's true. We all deserve to be at a place where we love to go each and every day. Think about it like this. It's like, what's the dinner time conversation look like for your staff, for example? Are they having conversations with their spouse and saying, "Man, you won't believe what my boss did today"? Or is it, "You will not believe what my boss did today, right? There's two different,
On.
right? There's two different versions there. And so we work so much, y'all. So we do deserve a place where we want to work, where we can feel productive and really come out on top altogether. Um, I think that last year's webinar, we talked a little bit about Gen Z and the dynamic there. And we'll share that link to you guys too. It's kind of cool to compare the two. And then Alayna, can you remind us of those cutoff years for like millennials and Gen Z in particular?
Yeah, so we use Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you want to know why, check out that last webinar. But millennials are 1981 to 1996 birth years. And I like to say, if you think you have it bad, because in 2025, if you do the math, that's 29 to 42, I think. No, to 44. I apologize. My mental math's not very good. To 44, you might think, okay, I am lumped in with 29-year-olds. No, no, no. I am lumped in with 13-year-olds. Okay. So you can't complain. Gen Z is 1997 to 2012. So Jess and I are representing, hopefully, the best of our generations today. Um, what I want to say is we're going to share a couple different stories. I hope you guys like stories because we do. Um, Right now, one of the biggest pain points, I would say, with Gen Z especially, is this shift from you leave your personal drama at the door and you are accessible whenever we need you and you stay here until we give you another job. You don't keep job hopping. That personal, professional boundary conversation keeps coming up. So I want to start, Jess, by asking you, what were you taught about separating the personal and professional?
Yeah, I'd say about I know the job of course prior to Magnet. I had a few of them actually. And I'd say and the mini book that you guys will read discusses this and that really hit home for me. It talks about like being in the gray. And I think for me, it was more of a having a supervisor or a boss that made things very black and white. So there was no bringing your whole self to work kind of mentality. It was more about uh, you leave your stuff at the door and you got to come in and this is now your world. And what we don't see is that, like, but our world affects us at work, right? And I think that sometimes it can suppress making just more genuine connections if we don't um, figure out what else is going on in our staff's life, right? What any thoughts on this, Elena?
Yeah, so definitely grew up with some different lessons. Actually, I bet you my bosses did tell me to stop talking so much about my personal life, and it just went right over my head. And still, I don't know how to separate fully. Okay, I get it. Um, but this was a little bit ago. It was Thanksgiving. I actually was talking about this with my future father-in-law. And I was just asking him about his career and things that he loved and didn't love. And he shared with me how he moved from when once he and my future mother-in-law had two kids, they were like, okay, we need Jeff to have a more lucrative job. He was a teacher and he loved it, but that was not making ends meet. And so he moved from this thing that he loved to something that he still liked. And he worked in a corporate space and he absolutely climbed the corporate ladder to be able to provide that better life for his kids, for him, right, for his family. And what he was saying at Thanksgiving was that he looks back with a bit of regret. He wishes that he had been to more of the dance recitals and the theater shows because my fiance was not an athlete. That's okay. I wasn't either. But that he wishes that he thought he was putting family first by working more. And now that he's nearing retirement, he wishes that he could go back, and he now was passing on the lesson to us to never put work before family. That's one perspective, right? That is a talk about the generational shift of the lesson that's been passed down. And then on a different side, I was raised a little bit differently. My dad actually is uh, a younger generation than my future father-in-law. And I never saw him still on his laptop when we were all eating dinner. My dad made a really clear boundary where he said, as soon as the kids get home from school, which is at like 2:30, okay, schools, let's go longer. Your poor parents still have work to get done, right? Like I'm still in the middle of work at 2:30. But whenever we would come home, he would close his laptop, he would hang out with us. And I remember those nights that I couldn't sleep and I would wake up and my dad was down in his designated home office space and he would be up late working because he knew he still needed to get the job done, but he really wanted to spend that time with family. So I now am developing my own way that I show up at work, and I am weighing, along with my other Gen Z peers, I am weighing that work family balance. And family is why I work. So, of course, I'm going to talk about them in the workplace.
I love that, Elena. I'm really curious. You said something that made me think of something. Is that your dad was very intentional. He shut that laptop, right? Think
Mhm.
about the kids growing up today, you guys. Like we all have our little miniature laptop, our phone in our hand all the time. And so even the generation coming up now, I wonder what their separation of work will be like, right? Like that could be even more confusing, if you will. Or they jump to the other perspective and say, "I'm no electronics."
Mhm.
Sounds like me. And so I think it's really interesting that you said that that's how it kind of works with the laptop. And I think another piece is like when I was growing up in the workplace, this was my very first job, like my big girl job out of college. And I went to the office. This is kind of an offshoot of what you had mentioned, Elena, is that I remember I wanted to connect with my coworkers so much. I was absolutely the youngest in the company. It was an organization where a lot of people had been there for a long time. And I wanted to show who I am. I'm typically an extrovert, and I wanted to talk to people and get to know them. And I had come from a background where it's an ethnic background. My father's Lebanese, and I would bring a lot of leftovers for lunch, right? And so I'll never forget the day where I warmed up one of our classic dishes, kibbe, and it permeated the entire office. In retrospect, maybe I should have eaten it cold. I digress. But anyway, I warmed it up, and people were coming out of their offices like, "What is that smell?" And I
Oh,
grew up with that smell, like, reminded me of my parents and family get-togethers, and when people looked at me and reacted that way, I wanted to, like, hide under my desk,
oh,
and instead of, you know, asking me about, "Hey, Jess, what you got cooking in there?" I really felt reprimanded and shamed, and I think that they kind of missed the mark when I was entering the workplace. It was really an opportunity where they could have asked me about my background and got to know me and my roots. We talk about roots, right? Would have dug deeper. And it just didn't happen that way. And it actually reminds me of kind of like that. Well, that's common sense, Jess. Don't you know? You shouldn't have probably put your stinky food in the microwave. There's a series that we offer called Hit the Mark. It's our micro learning professionalism video series. And we created it because there was a group of people who said they were leaders and they were like, I have no idea how to coach my people like on these certain topics. And they use this tool now to have these unique conversations. And I think back like, man, if my manager showed me one of those videos, it could have opened up a conversation and really made that genuine connection that I think that anyone in the workforce is looking for these days. What do you think, Elena?
yeah, I love that. And we could probably talk about the personal professional for a long time because, right, we talk about we bring our conversations to work of the things that we're so proud of. We bring our food to work. We bring our attitude on the thing that happened on the road before we got to work, right? So of course, like we bring all of that. What happens though when we don't stay long enough for you to coach me on all of that, right? What happens when we talk about this revolving door is the phrase that we used to use, right? This revolving door of turnover. And now we talk more about our employees being like house plants, and that's really resonating, right? We get that people want more of that mobility. They all need something different. I want to give you a perspective of when I started working and I had my first big girl job. It was not the same year that Jess had her first big girl job, but it's okay. So I had done internships, part-time babysitting, tutoring, right? I had worked in a lot of different ways, but after college, I was hired. The company that had an internship for me that I was interning at hired me full time. And it was very interesting because my first full-time job started in May 2020. And we could talk about a lot of things happening in May 2020, but something that I saw was a lot of movement of people older than me. And what I mean by that is people were job hopping. It wasn't, I actually was one of the more stable people at my job because I was just so grateful to have a job. My friends, with the things happening, and especially this great resignation, they were having offer letters rescinded and interviews pulled. I'll be honest, I actually was supposed to go do a different internship at a different company, and they pulled my offer letter. And thank goodness my company that I was at said, I think my boss sent me a really funny email that said bummer with a smiley face emoji. And then the next day she called me and she was like, "Can we hire you?" I mean, I had the best experience. It was so great. But I saw at that time when I first started this true sense of I can't trust that I do have a job. And my friends can't trust it. I had friends who moved home thinking that they just finished 4 years of college. They were good to go. They were the most employable people, maybe a little entitled, but right, we were told, like, you're going to get a job. And then they didn't. So apparently, I didn't know this. The way it was done in the workplace before was that people stayed at one job their whole time. Their whole time. What does that mean? Their whole life, I guess. Yeah. Their whole time in that job, right? They would stay there. But right when I joined, I saw the exact opposite modeled for me by many people older than me that said they needed something different. Many people ended up needing a job from home because of their family dynamics, and they loved their job, but they couldn't come in 5 days a week, right? Or something like that. So it was rocky at the start for me, and I realize now how much that influenced my view on maybe you don't stay somewhere for your whole career because anything can change at any time. Maybe your priorities look different. What do you think, Jess?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I always so curious about when we talk about the way that it's always been done. To again, millennial here, always asking the why. And why do people want to keep doing it the way that they've always done? And I believe it's because they found success in it. So why wouldn't you want to keep doing something that used to be successful? And just it's unfortunate that it's just not working right now. And that's what we hear when I speak with our clients on those initial phone calls, is they're saying, "Man, our business was so successful in the past. Right now, like, we're really struggling." And can the younger generation be more curious as to how successful that organization has been, and honoring the success of those that came before them, and that allows for brainstorming ways to move the company into the future. I know I have a lot of friends and mentors who are older than me, and I value so much when they tell me about their experiences. What I hope for the younger workforce for me would be that we are more curious about why our mentors feel the way that they feel.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah. Um I've been giving, like, a lot of people have asked for advice from the college student perspective. Hey, what advice do you have for going into the workplace? And usually what I say are two things. One, not sure if you know this, but the perception of this entire generation is not good. Okay. And you are going to have to work to overcome these negative perceptions. And Jess, was it fair to say that when you joined the workplace as a millennial, it was the same thing?
Absolutely. 100%.
Did you know going in that there was a negative perception of millennials?
Oh, no, I thought I was the bee's knees.
Yes,
Come
that phrase in so long. That's so good. Yeah. Do bees even have knees? Anyway, whatever. Um, but no, right, like we go in and we always, all of us in every new job that we start have a blind spot because we were just told in the interview process that we were employable, that we were the one for the job. And so we come in, of course, we all think we're awesome. But the perception right now, the word that I hear a lot is it feels like Gen Z is entitled. And so I tell them first, here's this perception. And it might not be fair because it's an assumption they haven't met you yet, but you do have to work to overcome that. And also, here are some ways that I didn't do that very well, right? So I try to tell them that, and I'm still learning and growing. And then I actually ask them, or I tell them to be curious. Instead of asking why, because we know that the tone of voice doesn't always align with that, right? It's like, why? Why do I have to do that? I mean, I swear to you, I asked my boss, my first boss, my full-time job, why do I have to do that project? I was just genuinely curious, but that wasn't the way to ask. I'm telling them now to ask what the history is of something that they're curious about. So I love what you just said, Jess, because if they can, let's say I'm HR background, right? So when I was asked to start doing certain reports that were really manual and I didn't think it was going to be part of my job description, right? I saw a better way to do it and my creativity was going, but I was told, we'll do it this way because that's how we do it here. So if you start hearing employees ask you, hey, what is the history of this process? Like, how long have you been doing this? Is they might even ask, is there any way to use some of the technology we have to make this go faster? Like every new set of workers, no matter their age, is bringing a new perspective and it really can benefit the business and the bottom line. But right now, I think it's creating a bit more of that division for sure. Um, and that leads to maybe the third hot topic of respectful communication. So talk about that perception, the way we ask questions. Maybe it's not coming across as the most respectful. But I might have already told you this story, some of you. When I started working full time, I had a notebook in one hand and truly the printed employee handbook in the other because I'm just that type of person. I want to know the rules and how to follow them, right? And I came in with 21 years of lessons, and my parents taught me my pleases and thank yous, and they taught me how to be respectful to family members and all the things. And nowhere in the handbook or in all my notes from onboarding or in my parents' lessons to me did anyone think to say, Alayna, don't talk to your boss the same way that you talk to your friends. I just like you, Jess, when you were trying to make connections, right? You were like, I'm bringing food from home. Like, I want to make connections here. I learned that my casual communication style that I thought was actually like a sign that I trust you, and that I'm willing to share this. Apparently, that was too much and it was disrespectful. And you said it earlier, Jess, but you might think you didn't have to share it because it's common sense. But what's common is only based on the things that we've had repeated exposure to. And the repeated exposure I had up until that point was building relationships through really casual conversation. So I've missed the mark a bit, and I'm glad people told me, but I can't help but look back and wish that someone had just shared that with me before it got to the point where people were judging me for that. I wish someone had just said, hey, inside scoop, when you say that, oh, it's hard for people to hear how awesome you are because they think this thing. So, Jess, if I can ask you about your mom hat that you wear sometimes, you've got even younger kiddos. Are they the next generation? And how do you feel about respectful communication with them?
Wow. I could talk for a long time on this one. Try to and we've all seen the videos, right? Where like the teacher's given a list of the words that the kids use now. Like literally the children have a whole new language. And I was told just this week, don't say skibbity mom. It's not cool anymore. And I just, I'm like overwhelmed with I don't even know where to start. But I think when it comes to communications, the younger generations, younger than me, are struggling because they're talking to people from everywhere, right? My kids have the VR, headset thing, and they play this game. If you know about Gorilla Tag, just put like something in the chat. I'm so curious. Gorilla Tag. It's a game. They're talking to people all around the world, and luckily it's very monitored. However, the way they communicate with complete strangers is sometimes jarring. And I'm like, girls, like this isn't human, like so I think it's going to be curious to know again how our younger generation will come into the workplace with communication skills that once the millennials are completely at the top of the food chain, if you will, when it comes to ages in the workplace, that will be like, what happened? Oh wait, I raised them, right? And so anyway, I think that there could be it could be quite shocking, and which is why it's important that we address this common sense component in the workplace right now, like don't wait, and that we don't assume, you know what they say about assume, right? Is we don't want to assume that folks know exactly what I know. It's that whole Goldilocks story that our team tells, is that I'm always in the right. Like everyone should communicate like me. But let's all like admit that this week, even, that there was a moment in time that perhaps you didn't communicate the way that you should have, whether it's at work or at your house, is that there absolutely is a way that we can do things better. And I know I tell my kids that there are adults that don't know how to do this communication thing right. It's the one thing when you go to therapy or when you're talking to coaches or other people, they're like, communication is key. It's because it really is. And we really have to tackle that component and not be afraid of it and have an open conversation. And I think that's why the mini book really gives a different perspective of how we can open up communication with different generations based on knowing that everybody comes from a different walk of life, right?
Absolutely. I was just teaching yesterday. Was that yesterday? I was just teaching yesterday about some of this overlap with communications and generations. And after I was speaking, someone went up intending to make a jab at his kid who was Gen Z. I'm like, he doesn't get my phrases anymore. And I'm not even going to remember it, but he said a phrase, something about being it's easy to be a Monday morning football player, quarterback, something. Have you even heard this phrase? If someone knows the phrase, please put it in the chat. And everyone in the room laughed. And I was like, oh, so this goes both ways, the not understanding language. Um, there are certain phrases that we use that just don't stick anymore. So that's an easy one to fix. And of course, there are bigger ones. Like we think that we're being super clear and we're not. And we could talk about the communication piece all day long. I share a lot about the Gen Z side of things. So, Jess, I was wondering if you could share a piece to those who are not Gen Z here on the webinar of your advice for those who are really struggling with their younger hires right now.
Yeah, I think we all can agree that we have a desire to make a difference in the workplace, if that's where we want to concentrate that effort at. And uniting our differences will help us connect on a deeper level. It's going to help build those work friend relationships that are really important. That helps us become more productive and happier in our roles. In addition, like a multi-generation workforce can help your organization find that creativity, and reimagine different strategies and look at old processes and figure out how to create better customer and client experiences. And just overall, then you've got a nice setup for a healthy company culture. And I think on the other side is to ask the question, like, what happens if we don't adjust? Because I talk to those folks on a regular basis. And that's when we hear there's combative relationships and we're burnt out. And I read a study just this morning that said Gen Z is actually the most burnout of all the generations. Was a Forbes article this morning from 2025. And we will lose productivity. We're going to lose our people. And then, like the big T of turnover, like that is a costly component. So I'd say that's kind of my advice is that for us to just pull back and figure out, we all want to make a difference here. And how can we better align and communicate and connect with one another? So thanks for that question, Alayna.
Yeah.
Hey, as we wrap up today, I know you guys have a lot to think about. If you have any questions, now's the time. So put those in the Q&A box and we'll answer those after sharing a little bit more today on our offer.
Okay. I have to tell you guys about, sorry, I was pulling up my Q&A box. It's empty right now, so ask me some questions, please and thank you. Did I do a good Gen Z impression? Anyway, our next webinar, I'm really excited about. So one thing that we dropped it a couple times in here, this conversation around bringing your whole self to work. And the question is, do we have the resources to handle that? Because we can't change it. We no longer have the luxury of telling our employees, like, leave it at the door, because they're just not. They're bringing their cell phones in, they're bringing everything in, right? I have been working with a licensed therapist. Her name's Brittany Johnson, and she is helping us build a class on the bare minimum, the 101 that you as a leader need to know to both coach your employees to get the job done and to listen to them and support them so that they don't leave. And it's a fine balance. And I think that it's going to be a great conversation. You get the chance to ask her questions. So sign up for that webinar. It's July 18th at 12 p.m. And this is a great one. If you have questions ahead of time, let me know. We've got a long time before that. So send me or Jess any notes that you have with questions for that. Well, back to you, Jess.
Awesome. Thank you. I am so excited for this new class, you guys. I think it's so needed. And we've been talking about how to coach for a long time now. And so, bravo to Alayna and the rest of the team who's putting all this together, because I know our clients are literally asking for this class right now. So it's happening. I did want to just mention that as we talked about at the beginning, we've been referring to our new mini book called It's Not About Birth Year. And I'm going to put that in the chat here in a moment, but you can find that. I'm going to show you on magnetvault.com. And this is our beautiful vault that our team has created. We have a gazillion different employee retention tools. So here's one little piece of advice. If you're like, we need all of these. How do I do all of this? Well, you can't do everything at the same time, but what you can do is schedule out an hour for yourself to go through this vault and say, yes, mentoring minute guide, we're pushing that out to managers. Yes, our executives are going to look through this cost of turnover calculator. Yes, we're going to take this employee ecosystem retention audit. Okay. So plan out some of these tools. They have been received so well for our clients who are using them, then that way you don't have to waste time starting them from scratch. They're literally right here. So that was just shameless plug for Magnet Vault, but wanted to point your attention when you go to the bottom of the screen, you can go to purchase physical copies or you can download the book for free. So if you wanted to buy that little book that Alayna had, it's a great opportunity for some training. So you click on there and then we head to a uh, a little form that will say, I want this many bundles of 10. So if you've got a larger group, if you've got multiple locations and you want to do kind of a mass shipment at each of those, email me, jess@magnetculture.com, and we can set up something larger for your organization. But I think having those books, setting up a little miniature training is going to be so advantageous. And a bundle of 10 is only $45. So most people have that kind of training budget, right? So, I wanted to just draw your all's attention to that piece and remind you of the webinar that we have. Don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you are looking to bring this kind of message about generations and really dig in with your team, contact me again, Jess at magnetculture.com. Let's talk about what it might look like to bring Alayna or another one of our team members in to do actual training. Like we have a 3 hour in-person course that, man, you get your hands dirty. It's a fantastic workshop, and it really does build perspective on the unique generations that we have in the workplace.
I would love, really quick, we had one question. If you have more, we will email you answers. So feel free to send any more. But Kathy just asked a question that I have been hearing a lot. We talk a lot about shifting mindsets because that's where we have to start. We have to address what are some of these things that we've held, these beliefs for a long time. And the question is, where do we need to flex? Are there specific policies or procedures that we would recommend changing? I'm going to tell you one that we just changed on our team. So, no matter what industry you're in or environment, I think this would apply really well for any full time employees that request time off. So, what we realized, the way that we have always done it, is you have to request time off very formally in our system with as much notice as possible. But we were always getting our requests approved. Like there was never a time that anyone would not approve the request because we all make sure that we get our work done before we leave for vacation. We're a really hardworking team. And an executive actually was asking us if we've shifted anything for this younger workforce. And that's when we realized that this was a great opportunity. This was a great example. So now what we do is instead of requesting PTO, that was our very formal policy. Now our policy is that you have an allocated PTO bank, right? Paid time off that you can use. And what you have to do is just email those who would be impacted by your time off and make sure that they don't have a conflicting time off, right? And that they could check your anything that you need while you're gone. So maybe that exact casual nature doesn't work so well with your team, but that's a great option, right? A PTO policy that we've not looked at in years. Could we change how we request PTO? Um, I think we probably need to do a whole webinar on this, honestly, but the most studies are saying that your youngest workers value flexibility more than anything right now. And honestly, I don't know if the studies only say that about the youngest workers. I think millennials and others want it too. So if we have very, very rigid working times, I bet you're going to continue to lose people for lack of flexibility. We do have one resource in the vault around some flexible scheduling ideas that have worked well from our clients for the hourly population. So that's another one too. But thank you for that question, Kathy, and we'll keep bringing more of that conversation on policies here and in our trainings.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, thanks, Kathy, for sending that in. I think it is important to connect the mindset shift with what's written, right?
Mm.
And making changes where we see fit. And again, being curious, how can we change this so it's not always the way we've always done it, right? I just want to say thank you all so much for coming to the webinar today. Thank you, Alayna, for your insights. I've had a great time chatting with you. Don't forget to join or to go to the to register for our next webinar and then find those resources in Magnet Vault. And we hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Jess.
Bye.
Bye.